Hey everybody, welcome to the Institute, the place where we learn to be the leaders that God's called us to be. And today I want to talk a quick minute about decision making. Often when we make decisions, we just kind of sit down and we really quickly in our mind decide what we think is right, and then we say that's what we should do. And then if you're in like a group setting and a team meeting, then it becomes, well, I think this and I think this and I think this. And it becomes decisions based on either people's experience, based on what people feel, based on what people think, and not necessarily based on what is the absolute wisest decision that needs to be made. So I'm going to introduce a little tool that I think is really, really helpful. There's this guy by the name of Shane Hips that first introduced this to us, and it's called a Polarity Grid. And it's one of those things where when you have a decision to be made, you pull out the Polarity Grid and walk through these steps, and it helps to clarify some of the details around the decision and hopefully makes the decision easier. So if we can just take for a minute and just take a look at this chart. So you see these two boxes here that are empty, and then you see this one says positive and this one says negative. So it doesn't matter what the decision is. The decision that we're going to talk about right now is should we buy a coaster or not? Now, we're not trying to decide whether we're going to buy a coaster, but there might be a point that we do. And so what we're going to do is kind of pretend we're deciding that, and I'm going to walk through how you do this. So what I would do is I would write in this box, buy the coaster. And then I would write this box, don't buy the coaster. Because those are our two different decisions to be made. Do we buy the coaster or do we not? Then the important part is everyone that's in the room has to do their best to remove their own thoughts, opinions, and feelings away from it. To say, you know what, I'm going to clear my mind about what I think about whether we should buy a coaster or not, and I'm going to push that aside and walk through this process in as clear a mind as possible. So what you would do is you would take first this box, the positive reasons for buying a coaster, and you're going to list them here. All the positive reasons. So the positive reasons would be that we can fit more people in a coaster than we can in a van. The positive reasons is often the coaster is more comfortable than a van. Another positive reason would be that it's easier to board, right? You don't have to go duck down and slide to the back of the van. A coaster, you can just get in and it's just easier to board. And so on and on you would go as a group. What are all the positive reasons for buying a coaster? Then, what are all the negative reasons for buying a coaster? You can say, well, negative reasons for buying a coaster is it takes more fuel. It's very expensive. And so if we buy the coaster, there's probably something else we're not going to be able to buy. Another negative reason of the coaster is, and I don't know this to be true, but I don't know if there's a different driving permit that's needed for a coaster. It's also bigger to park. And so on and on you go with all of the negative things about buying a coaster. And then you move to this box. What are all the positive things if we don't buy the coaster? And it could be, well, we save the money. And, on and on of what the positive things are if we don't buy the coaster. We save the money. We don't need to get the extra permit. And what you'll notice is some of the negatives of here can tend to be similar to some of the positives on this side and vice versa. So if we go to the negatives of not buying a coaster, the negatives are we'd have to drive more vehicles if we don't buy a coaster. And negatives of not buying a coaster is we aren't able to all ride in the same vehicle as far as, if we have an event or something, it's not as fun, And you'll kind of look at some of these boxes here can kind of reflect some of the things here. But you still work through the process because it helps you think through all of the positives and negatives of doing this, making this decision, or make this decision. Then at the end, you say, all right, there's something you haven't said that isn't listed in one of these boxes. You have to give everybody a chance to speak. And then you write everything down. And then at the end, then you say, okay, is there a clear answer once we've done this? And what often will happen is everyone go, you know what? Yeah, it does kind of seem like it's a clear answer that we should or shouldn't. And then everybody's had a voice. Everybody's spoken into it. And the decision is made as a group. Now, sometimes you walk through this process and guess what? A clear decision isn't there. And the team could still be split. Like some of you think we should buy a coaster, some of you think we shouldn't. And at that point, it's the leader's responsibility to take a look at all of this, to have heard what everybody said, and then make the best decision that they think, not for what they want, but was for best for the ministry, what's best for Cherish, what's best for the team. And that's the burden of leadership, is you got to make the decision. And sometimes it's a good thing because you're like, yeah, I get to make a decision. Other times it's a burden because I have to make a decision. But what this does is everyone on your team is heard, everyone is spoken, you have all the data needed. And sometimes even as you're walking through this, you might say, someone might say, well, we need to get an extra permit. And someone say, no, we don't need to get an extra driving permit. And that's when you go, okay, well, we need to find that information out. So we're going to pause. Who's going to find this information out to get the right data for our chart? So it doesn't mean the decision is made at that meeting. Maybe yes, maybe no. But this tool is a really, really important tool. So this document, multiple people already have it. I'll post it on the channel, on the Institute channel, so everybody can access it. And I really want you to use it. It's a tool that is really, really helpful. And you're going to walk through it this week, and then you're going to even do some practice ones where you're going to, and it might be a real decision to be made. It might not be a real decision to be made, but you're going to practice this. So by the end of this week, you're going to know how to use the Polarity Grid.